Welcome to chapter 2 of the 4 agreements. In this video, I am going to walk through what I think the 4 key takeaways are, and then ways that you can actually begin to implement this chapter into your daily life. If you missed chapter 1, I'll put the link to it right here. And if you don't want to miss the future chapters, click subscribe so you don't miss out. So chapter 2 is be impeccable with your word. Now, in full disclosure, this is the chapter that when I first started studying the 4 agreements, I blew off. I've always been the type of person who really values high levels of integrity, and I thought this just didn't apply to me. So I focused on the other 3. And then I was on a trip, December 2017, to Savannah and started journaling about this chapter. I remember this so vividly because this one chapter produced hours of journaling, and that's when the depths of this chapter really hit me. And so I want to share with you the 4 main things to take away, and then 4 things that you can do to make it part of your journey. So the first takeaway is our word is one of the most powerful things that we possess. It can change lives. It can change somebody else's life. It can change your life. Honoring how powerful our words are is so important to your journey to evolving, to becoming a better person, to living more authentically. Your word really, truly does hold the key. Now, the second takeaway that I have from this book is the section that starts on page 31, where he first starts to talk about what the word impeccable actually means, which is without sin. He then goes on to talk about how a sin is actually anything that you do against yourself, against harming you. So when you say something bad to somebody else, it actually reflects back on you. It impacts you. And then he goes to say sin is actually a rejection of yourself. This right here, this page 31, this what is impeccable mean, and the fact that a sin is against yourself is what really clinched this book for me. Page 31 is what I ended up journaling hours about. The other parts of this chapter absolutely did have an impact on me. They kind of build on this concept, but understanding that your word, even if it's directed towards somebody else, goes against you. What you say comes back to impact you will change your life. And then even to make it more impactful, he begins to talk about how this all happens because we don't have self-love. And I can say from my personal experience that this is so incredibly true. The more that I have worked on loving myself and healing my wounds, the easier it is to be impeccable with my word. The easier it is to not throw mean, nasty language at other people. So really taking the time to understand the concepts on page 31 and understanding that your own negative words are due to a lack of self-love can really help build you a path forward in implementing this agreement. Now, the third takeaway from this chapter is gossip. Gossip is the main way that we communicate our words and send poison darts to other people. And so really learning that gossip is something that is negative will benefit you greatly. Now, a word on gossip. Gossip isn't always intentional. We often think of gossip as being, the nasty, mean, popular girls group being mean to somebody else. We think gossip being, spreading rumors and lies, but gossip can be very unintentional in just passing along our opinion. And if our opinion is negative and that person takes that on as fact or allows it to impact their opinion, it can change the trajectory of their life and reflect back on you. So getting gossip under control is very important. And the fourth takeaway from this chapter is what you say to yourself matters. Now, we kind of touched on this with the beginning couple points, but I want to take this further by sharing with you what is probably hands down one of my favorite quotes from this book. I use it quite frequently, and that is, it's on page 43, "You will only receive a negative idea if your mind is fertile ground for that idea." I want to read that one more time. You will only receive a negative idea if your mind is fertile ground for that idea. So what this is really talking about is if you do the work to be impeccable with your word towards yourself, you heal that self-love issue, you cleanse your mind. And so when somebody else gives you gossip or says something mean to you, your mind will not accept it as truth because it knows its own truth. So being impeccable with your word towards yourself, not being mean and nasty towards yourself, creates a space where within your mind, you can't be impacted by other people's negative words to you. And this is where your life can really, truly transform. I've seen it in myself. 2 years ago, if you had said something mean and nasty to me, I probably would have been crying in my bedroom for days. Now you could probably say the exact same thing and I'd be like, okay, have a nice day. Enjoy your opinion. And I go on about my business. But that is only because of doing the work here of changing my words towards myself, being impeccable with my words towards me. Okay, so those are the 4 key takeaways. Now, how can you actually implement this in your own life? So the first tip is end gossip. Now, I know that's really easy to say, but not actually easy to do. We are surrounded in a culture of gossip. And so stepping away from that is really difficult, especially if you are surrounded by people who are gossiping that are friends or close family members. Getting away from that or stopping it is very difficult. So here's some tips that I used in my own life to implement this that you can take with you. So the first thing is boundaries. You absolutely have to master the boundaries that you put in place. Not always easy, but boundaries will help you. So as an example, I have somebody in my life who is very gossipy, and I wasn't ready to remove this person from my life. So I simply placed a boundary around what I was willing to listen to when we conversed with each other. And I straight up told her, I don't want to listen to gossip. I don't enjoy gossip. I would appreciate it if we could no longer gossip. Then the key with boundaries is you have to enforce. So if you don't enforce your boundaries, people learn that they don't mean anything. So you then have to enforce. So what that looked like for me was every time we met up and she started gossiping, I would stop her and say, remember, I don't want to engage in gossip. And it's a matter of process. In fact, with this person, she's so naturally gossipy that I have to continually remind her, I don't care to gossip. It's fewer and far between now, but that's how it looks like in life, is putting that boundary around. Now, you might find with your friend groups, if they are all gossipy and you're the only one who doesn't want to gossip, that's a little bit harder to do. And at that point, you have to decide if you are at a space in your journey where you are able to be around it without it impacting you. Because remember, all words impact you. Whether you say it or they say it, if your mind is willing to accept it, if it is fertile ground for that negative idea, it will come to you. So you have to make a conscious decision for yourself if being with that friend group is hard. Now, I hear you saying, but then how do I make new friends? Because that takes time and it's difficult. We're in a pandemic, all these other things. But here's what I will tell you is the more that you do this work, the more that you do the emotional healing work, the more that you live towards agreements, the more you love yourself, the less you need to be around people. I've gotten to the point where I'm like, if I can't be with somebody who is healthy and balanced and it's going to be a positive conversation, I would rather be alone. Now, it took me a long time to get to this point, but it is possible. And you really have to step back and decide, am I going to continue to need this friend group or this family group because I don't want to be alone, or am I willing to do the tough work for a few years and get myself to a healthier space? And here's the great thing about doing the work is you energetically attract like matches. And so as you begin to do your healing work, you will attract in people to your life that are in the same space as you. It just takes time. So really kind of figure out, what do you want? Is gossip worth it? Are you in a position that you're ready to truly change and separate from what is toxic in your life? Now, a side note on what is toxic. I get this question a lot. What is toxic is when you leave the situation feeling worse than you were before you were in the situation. If you are with somebody and they're constantly being gossipy and negative and it drains you, you don't want to be in that relationship. Okay, so the second thing that you can do to implement this chapter is slow down when you speak. That's right. You don't have to respond right away. You can stop and contemplate life before putting your words out there. So as an example, in my own life, I have a 16-year-old son, and anytime he does something that we either need to discuss it or there needs to be a punishment, and I am feeling emotions in me, I will say to him, you know this was wrong, but I need time to think about it. I need time to decide what the consequences are, and I remove myself from the situation. Now, that's easier because he's older, but that's an example of not speaking right away. Your words really do have a lot of power, and so you want to be very careful how you use them. It is better to say, I need a minute, than to say something that you don't want to actually be saying. All right, so the third thing that you can do is bring awareness to your inner negative dialogue. So awareness is simply one of the best ways to acknowledge an issue and to correct an issue. Just being aware is more powerful than you actually realize. So as you're going through your day, notice when you're saying negative things to yourself. If you have a minute, write it down. You can go back and journal about it later. If you have extra minutes, you can actually stop and do a quick digestion of what that is. But the important thing is to be aware. The more that you are conscious of how you're speaking to yourself, the easier it is to then begin to correct those things. All right, so my fourth and final tip for you on how to implement this particular chapter is go back to page 31 and spend some time with it. I truly believe that page 31 is really the page that starts the section on really understanding what being impeccable with your word means. The more that you spend time with that particular page and understand what it's saying and what it's teaching you, the easier it is to implement the rest of these. The easier it is to heal the negative thinking and talking towards yourself. And when you heal the negative thinking and talking towards yourself, you get more self-love. The more self-love you have, the less negative words you are spreading around, and the better your life gets. So I hope these were helpful to you. If you do have questions or comments, drop them below. If you liked the video, click like. And if you want to be notified when chapter 3 comes out, click subscribe so you don't miss out. Thank you so much for your time today.